Let's take a deeper look into what an iterable actually is. So here I've got my array and I'm looping over it and I'm console logging the cut. No big deal. But what if I want to get the index of the actual cut as well to say like chuck is first, brisket is second, etc., etc. There's no real good way to do that right here unless I were to say cuts.index of and find it every single time. But what we don't know about yet is that there are these things called generators, and we're going to go into a whole bunch of that in the video. But if you go into your console here and do this with me, say cuts.entries, what that is going to give us is actually an array iterator. And if you open it up, you'd expect to see all of the data, but there's nothing in there. All you know that there's a next function that we can call on it. So if we actually store that array cuts.entries in a variable, so const, let's say meat equals cuts.entries. Now, what do we have meat? Is that all of the meat? No, it's the iterator, and we can iterate through each of those ones manually. This loop was doing it for us, but if we ever wanted to do it manually, and we'll look at more examples when we hit generators, you call meat.next and meat.next and then meat.next. Let's see what we got there. Once, a couple more times. There we go. So what did we get here? Well, the first time we called it, we got done false. And that means that the loop hasn't finished, more in the generator video. And then the value is an array where the first thing is going to be the index. And the second thing is going to be the actual value. So second one is brisket. Third one, fourth one, you probably get the point. It tells us what the index is and what the short rib is. So now, why would this be useful to us in this video where we're learning about for of? Because what you can do is if we iterate over not just the plain array, but we iterate over the array iterator, which is .entries. Watch what we'll get now. Okay, so now we get cut is not chuck brisket. Cut is an array every single time that we go through it. Now that you might be saying like, that's annoying because now I have to say cut 0 and cut 1 to get the index and the value. But hopefully you're screaming at me right now and you're going to say, well, Wes, I can use destructuring there, right? Because what we can do is we can say for const index and cut, because each of these is going to return an array, we can just immediately destructure that into their own variables. So const I and cut. Now if we just console log I, maybe let's put this in a template string. Cut is the I item. Now we should have a variable called cut and a variable called I. There we go. Chuck is a 0 item. Brisket is the first item, second, and third, etc., etc. If we wanted to offset that, we just add 1 to it. And first, second, third, and fourth. Good. So what are we doing here? We're using cuts.entries to bring us an iterator. For of, this is kind of the nice thing about for of is it can pretty much handle anything that you throw at it. You don't have to think like, what kind of data is this? Which of my like 4 or 5 different loops that I have available to me should I use? In almost all cases, except for objects, you can just use your for of and just throw anything at it. And the for of loop is going to just figure out how to handle that data for you. So here I've destructured the data as we actually go on in and we're off and running with that. Let's look at another example where for of is useful, and that is when you're trying to iterate over the arguments object. So I'm just going to take this out for a second. And let's say we have a function called add up numbers. And that function is going to be called like this, add up numbers. And you have no idea how many numbers are going to get passed. Maybe somebody's going to pass a whole bunch of them. And when you're declaring the function, you can't really like put a whole bunch of placeholders like num1, num2, num3, just in case they pass that many, because you have absolutely no idea how many arguments they're going to pass. So instead of putting anything in there, what we can do inside of this function is just console log this variable called arguments. Now, that is a special word, and it's going to be an array-ish type where it will give us all of the actual arguments. So let's take a look here. Cool. That arguments is now what looks to be an array. It's not exactly an array of everything that got passed in. And why I'm so bent up on saying it's array-ish is because if you open it up, you'll see a couple things right here. First of all, the prototype is not an array. What happens? Let me just console log a regular array just to show you like 1, 2, 3. This is a regular array. Open that sucker up. Look at the prototype of that thing was the array. And if you open that up, you'll see here's all the crazy array methods that we're used to, like every and entries and concat and map and push and pop and reduce and everything we could possibly want, right? Because that has built up a proper array. Now, arguments is simply just a list with only one thing on it, length. However, you can iterate over it with the for of loop because it has a symbol iterator. So normally in a case like this, I would probably just convert arguments to a real array and use like a reduce on it and add them all up. But for whatever reason, if you're ever in the use case where you cannot convert your arguments to an object, maybe for some performance reasons or whatever you have, then you can go ahead and loop over arguments without first converting to an array. There's no need to convert it to an array if you just need to loop over them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say let total equal 0, start with 0, and then I'm going to loop over each of them. So I'm going to say for num in arguments, total plus equals num. And we should be able to return the total here. And that should add them all up. Let's see. I'm going to console log the total as well, just so we can see it. Oh, got a bit of an error here. Oh, what is my mistake here? Can you spot it? Why is it saying 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Because I said for in. It's for of, not for in. For in would give us the index. For of will give us the actual argument. Refresh. There we go. 267. Because I created a variable and I looped through it and updated every single one of them. Now, if I ever want to call add up numbers, what's 10 plus 10? 20. What if I do want to do a whole bunch more of them? Not a problem. It's going to give me, 256. Appropriate. So that is one example of what you could loop over it. You do not need to convert to a true array. You can just use the for of to iterate over it. What else can we use to the for of to iterate over? That's for a string. So maybe you have a name like Wes Boss. We'll say for const character of name, console log the character, and that will give us WES space BOS. Notice how I put a const there. I think I forgot it. Yeah, you make sure you put a const or let or a var in front of this. Otherwise, you're going to be overwriting the actual variable every single time instead of creating a let or a const that is scoped to that actual block. Finally, you can also loop over DOM collections without having to convert to a true array. Now, DOM collections are being, or node lists or HTML collections, whatever you're going to call them, they are being changed so that you will have all of your .for each and .map and all of those array methods that you're used to. However, in most browsers, they are not a true array. So we could use the for of, no problem there. So maybe we'll give myself a couple of paragraph tags in the body up here. Let's just say paragraph that says something like, hi, I'm P $. Let's give ourselves 10 of them. Cool. So I got a whole bunch of paragraphs on the page here. You can see them all right here. Then I want to select them. So say const ps equals document.querySelector all paragraph. And I'm just going to console log the paragraphs. Cool. So this, open it up. See, it's not a true array. It is a node list, but if you open that up, you will see that we have .for each, as well as a couple other of the array methods that we're used to. But if you want to loop over it with a for of loop, for const paragraph of ps, and we can console log the paragraph. You see we get each individual one here, and that's useful if you want to do something like paragraph add event listener on click function console log this dot text content. So anytime someone clicks on a paragraph, go ahead and console log whatever's inside of it. P3, P1, P2, P1. Good. Didn't need to convert it to an array. Again, you totally can. I'm not sure of a huge performance difference between the two. You can do your own testing on that, but it's helpful to know that you can use the for of with things that aren't arrays as long as they are an iterable. And what is an iterable? A DOM collection, arguments, a string, an array, a map, or a set.